Hello and thank you all for watching. This is Manny Sunny-san for a full moon astrological report happening on May the 4th in the sign of Scorpio, the week of the festival of the Buddha. The Buddha and the Christ force come together to bless the earth and humanity. The Taurus full moon uh, of each year, the full moon is the most powerful throughout the year. This is a great feast of the East. In Tibet, it is celebrated in the Wesak Valley. This is also a time where the two divine guides of the East and the West collaborate and work in the closest spiritual union, Buddha and Christ. This festival every year using the inspiration point for working the coming year, whether one is to believe it or not. This is a unique opportunity to connect us all together, to send love and compassion to the universe with wisdom. The terrible toll of the disaster of Nepal made reflect on our cosmic harmony with nature. They gathered experts, had announced for this part of the world a region with significant seismic risk and the imminence of an earthquake, yet they wanted to try to prevent and save. This full moon is both on May the 4th, is in line with the axis of Taurus Scorpio, 13 degrees 22 minutes. For the sun, the path of 14 degrees of Taurus, the Sabian symbol says. On the beach, children play and a crustacean splits the water surface. Dominant, back to the simple joys to revitalize. For the moon is on the 14th degree of Scorpio, Sabian symbol says, the installers working on the phone lines, the need to establish new connections, means of communication. We could find a more level in line with this opportunity of the Wesak, an image that could possibly appear ambiguous than the degree of the sun. Bringing together children and shellfish, not really because the mind can be filled with very different activities, and the consciousness of socialized man operates at two levels, in parallel with what is happening in the unconscious, represented by the sea. The border is that it is shown between, on one side, the children playing on the sand, and the other, the crustacean in the water. The border would be that the stretch of wet and sand regularly covered by small waves that cover it. The border, of course, would be between the conscious and the unconsciousness, but also value close contact with the natural energies and simple pleasures of life. At the same time, the sense of community when people are separated constantly requires more complicated means and an exchange of ideas and feelings. All interpersonal relationships can pass only through feelings, only through communication, dialogue, that not only build alignment but also use as widely as possible. The full moon happening on May 4th, Universal Time 3:43. The axis of Taurus Scorpio is a fixed shaft with T square with Jupiter and Leo, a sailboat, which means whose hull is the axis of full moon. And the bottom is made of a little wide, sextiling Neptune Pluto. Jupiter brandishes a high mast, many aspects whose second sesqui square with Saturn Uranus, a sailboat. It is a boat with a sail, the T square with Jupiter. The three sextiles, whole moon Pluto, Pluto Neptune, a little wide, and Neptune Sun, bringing a communication spoken of the Sabian symbol degree of the moon. Both trines, moon, Neptune and Sun, Pluto at a creative side. The axis of motivation is the sun. Moon opposition, emotionally we find relational balance with others, so communication skills, self-expression, and importance of communication and compromise is the figure. Fluent relationship, openness, will it happen with fixed stars? The challenges brought by the focus planet Jupiter in a double square and opposition, the largest planet of the theme, the more tense as well. It will work to enable the realization of all creative potential, represented by the sextile and trine. But do we have enough spiritual connection where we let ourselves dominate by an ego that seeks only material profit? Difficult balance between matter and spirit. The full moon of Taurus Scorpio axis. In the fixed sign, it is more resistant to change but often prevent forward or to question. Now the sun is in Taurus. Think especially to meet his needs, to quench his thirst. He wants to build or acquire for fear of being caught by the airwaves, by unawares. With Mars, which is added in this sign, we may get excited, get impatient, especially with the sun trine to Pluto, and a square to Jupiter in Leo. Hyperactive the ego can be, increased tenfold. It folds and arches in the correctness of his beliefs, even in front of Scorpio, powerful and magnetic, emotional and anxious, as the transformation of its system of values. But Scorpio is wary, he is afraid what handles. He prefers to ignore the request of Taurus to define his nature to destruction and reconstruction. Overwhelmed by anxieties, by its fear of not doing well, not much love, not being able to handle the emotions of others, he lets overwhelm good, and the walnut accept that a Scorpio, it never dies unless it is decided. This full moon is made with a sesqui square, exact, descending between between Saturn and Uranus. This is the second passage, is with Saturn retrograde. The first took place in early December, a month before the drama. With the third will be in October 22nd, 2015. The sesqui square is always abnormal or excessive way to behave with others, and here in fire signs, Aries, Sagittarius, the dialogue is crisp, true balance of power that wants all cause to convince whoever is in front and does not want to be convinced. It is a terrible challenge that is asked to accept others' indifference, both in his personal life and community life. Inevitably, there are obstacles, but we can also reflect on the obstacles that turn to itself. The Sesqui square between two social plans, which began in December of 2014, could well mean the departure of transformation induced by the seventh Pluto-Uranus square, much like triggering factors, since the appearance happens in fire signs. The Mercury square Neptune and opposite Saturn, and the fact its next emotion will stay there at least until early summer. The square in mutable signs. By the side of nebulousness and confusion, thoughts could well be accentuated. Fortunately, the opposite with Saturn keeping watch with its rigor and requirement, for Mercury in Gemini loves to travel, airing its living space as much by the body than in spirit, to adapt to all kinds of new things, and that will soon retrograde in the sign. It is a good thing. The reasoning is brave, surely, but also enriched and deepened. With the North Node in Libra, which always requires relational balance. On May 7th, Venus enters Cancer. Venus is still in Gemini. It flutters. It shall contact. It will share SMS messages or phone communication, especially if it does not form any major aspect. The Sun and the clear weather are his accomplices. She took the opportunity. She will stay a while in Cancer, May 7th to June 5th, opening the feelings that want to grow in confidence and mutual security. Sweet, tender, wanting forward like a crab while protecting themselves. It goes fast, hurries to get to Leo in the summer, where she will be retrograding after a very few days in Virgo, and then she looks for the best way to achieve. May 12th, Mars comes in contact with Gemini and ends its lunation opposition with Mars and Saturn. Blocking prohibited from acting. If you feel trapped in social, cultural dogmatism or authority that would paralyze us, there is a high risk of wanting to rush in more stretchers, especially as Mars will be simultaneously sesqui square to Pluto. So think about how to find new balance if we really want to prove, that is, to stay conscious rather than to make confrontations. Conclusion with this article would be, with this symbol of kids playing at the water's edge in his return to simple joys, we may question our lives stuck between profitability and consumer society that makes us to believe there's always more. In fact, what is really important for everyone is to come home. The growing anxiety not to happen, or a serenity based on simple joy similar to that of a child who is in a sandcastle. The larger numbers of opposition in this chart clearly shows a duality and a theme called splash in. There is a planet almost in every sign, quite the proposed challenge. 4 plus 5 plus 2015 equals 17 in numerology. A lovely card that always shows to believe, to have faith in ourselves, so we have the craftsmanship of our own lives. We are born under a lucky star, but this star is in us and must be sought. and found. When he was found, simply follow it, like the children playing on the beach near the small crabs and immersed in a marvel, constantly renewed, do not arise issues. We adults who just returned from a duo of the eclipses, sometimes painful contours we can heal once again without forgetting, without repressing the above mentioned. It would return like a boomerang. During the summer comes, we will have plenty of time to think about our needs, the values we give to our emotional, friendly, romantic, sexual, with the next downgrade of the Venus in the sign of Leo. Thank you for watching. This has been an astrological report with new moon happening on May 4th, the Wesak full moon, and the Wesak festival of the Buddha. Thank you for watching.